On paper, she was winning. I had just had the biggest cash month of my entire career. If you were looking at my life from the outside, you would have said, wow, she's made it. I was the heaviest I had ever been in my life. 10 kilos heavier than I was at 9 months pregnant. I had been training consistently for the last decade of my life. I was eating well, I was showing up, and no matter what I physically did, my body wouldn't let it go. My body was not malfunctioning, my body was communicating. When you finally do, everything moves. The body, the business, the bank account. If this can move, everything can move. Welcome to Rich and Regulated, where women learn to build wealth in alignment and flow. I'm Jessica Soul. For over a decade, I've helped women create the lives of their dreams, and here I'll share how I build wealth, fast-track results, and reveal money truths that will blow your mind. Ready to become rich and regulated? Let's get wealthy. I want to tell you about the version of me that existed in December last year. On paper, she was winning. I had just had the biggest cash month of my entire career. I took time off with my family. I was present. I was being generous. I was able to give in ways that I had never been able to give before. I bought my nephew an investment plan, something I would never have been able to do in any other season of my life. And so if you were looking at my life from the outside, you would have said, wow, she's made it. She's thriving. And at the same time, I was the heaviest I had ever been in my life. 86 kilos, which pains me to say. And I need to give you some context on that number because on its own, it doesn't really mean anything. At 40 weeks pregnant with my most recent baby, full term, about to give birth, I weighed 76 kilos. So here I was, no baby, standing in my bathroom, 10 kilos heavier than I was at 9 months pregnant. So let that sink in. 10 kilos heavier than full-term pregnancy, and I genuinely couldn't tell you why. And that's the part that unsettled me the most, because this was not a case of just letting myself go. I had been training consistently for the last decade of my life. I used to be a personal trainer. I know my body, I know how to move it, I know how to fuel it, and I know how to train it. And I was doing all of it. I was showing up, I was eating well. Yes, there was a little bit of extra vino here and there, but nothing really toxic, nothing that added up to that number on the scales. I changed gyms. I started running. I started doing things outside of my normal routine, trying to find that thing that would shift the weight. And no matter what I physically did, my body wouldn't let it go. And I remember standing there just genuinely perplexed, like my body was speaking a language I couldn't translate. And here is what I know now that I didn't know then. My body was not malfunctioning. My body was communicating. It was telling me about the changes I needed to make and how quickly they needed to be made. I just wasn't listening yet. And it was not just my body. My friendships were massively misaligned. And I do not mean slightly off. I mean massively. I was in this bizarre place where I felt like I almost had nobody while simultaneously being surrounded by people. And some of the people closest to me, if I'm being completely honest with you, some of them were genuinely toxic. You know, the kind of relationships where you leave the interaction feeling smaller, heavier, drained in a way that at the time I couldn't quite articulate. I remember hosting Christmas events that year and I drank more than I ever wanted to. And I want to be clear about what that looked like, because it was not just falling over, getting drunk. It was actually worse than that in a way. It was that quiet kind of drinking, the kind where your hand just reaches for the glass, not because you're celebrating, but because you're almost dulling and softening something, escaping something you haven't even named yet, like numbing a hum you do not want to hear. And that's exactly what it was. It was escapism. It was denial. Through November and December, I was living, everything was flowing, money was coming in, the business was working, and underneath all of that, constantly, there was this hum, this quiet, persistent frequency of something misaligned. Something is wrong. And I did what so many high-functioning women do. I kept moving anyway. And also, if I'm being honest with you, at that time, I was sitting in my ego, biggest cash month of my career, successful business, look at me go. All this external validation was loud enough to drown out that internal alarm that was actually screaming at me. For a while, it was okay. But at the end of the day, your body keeps the score. And mine was keeping it in kilos. And so then January came and something in me just decided. It wasn't a New Year's resolution, because I really don't do those. It was deeper than that. At the end of the day, it was a declaration, a line in the sand between the woman that I had been tolerating and the woman that I actually was. And I declared I was giving up alcohol, not because I had a problem with it. I didn't have an addiction. It was more surgical than that. I wanted to remove every excuse, every empty calorie, every layer of fog that was sitting between me and the truth of what was actually going on. If it was the wine, I would know. If it wasn't the wine, I would know that too. I went high protein, I kept lifting weights, I kept running, or I would call it jogging in my instance. And I almost simultaneously, and I do not believe this timing was an accident, an opportunity landed in my lap from America. A collaboration with a group of people whose collective reach across social media is over 1 million followers. Before, just literally started appearing, like the universe was watching me make the decisions and responding to it in real time. And then something happened that I didn't expect at all. Something that changed my entire understanding of how transformation works. The moment I saw the weight start to move, something unlocked in my belief system. Because here's the thing around being stuck. When nothing is moving, you start to believe that nothing can move. And that stuckness becomes your evidence. Your brain collects it and builds a case against you. See, you trained and nothing changed. See, you tried hard and the scale didn't move. See, this is just who you are now. But the moment my body responded, the moment I saw physical, undeniable, measurable proof that changed what was happening, my brain flipped the script entirely. If this can move, everything can move. If my body is responding, my business will respond. My relationships will respond. My wealth will respond. The weight loss was not just weight loss in the end. It was evidence. It was my body handing me proof that I wasn't stuck. I had just been carrying something unnecessarily. And everything did start to move. The weight, the income, the alignment, the opportunities, the clarity. 16 kilos later this year, and a version of me I genuinely didn't know was under there. But now I need to tell you about the part nobody prepares you for, the part that almost pulled me back under. And that's the duality of the situation. And here's what they don't tell you about rising. As everything rises, pushback rises with it. In equal measure, sometimes even in greater measure. It's like there's this law of physics attached to growth, and for every level you ascend, there's an equal and opposite force that shows up to test whether you actually want it or not. Clients kicked back. People in my world got strange with me. Judgment started arriving from places that I never expected. Energy shifted in rooms. And the comments. Oh my God, the comments. One of my friends, someone I considered close, actually said to me, and I quote, "I'm glad to see you this way, but don't lose too much weight. You don't want to look ill. I like you as you are. It's nice seeing you hold that little bit of extra weight." I want you to sit with that sentence for a minute, because I really had to reflect on this. Someone who claims to love me, telling me she preferred me heavier, telling me my shrinking was concerning, but my carrying weight was comfortable. And I understand now that her comment had nothing to do with me and everything to do with what my transformation was reflecting back at her. But in that moment, it landed like a stone. And I'll be honest with you, because that's what I'm here to do. There was a period where all of it got in. The pushback, the comments, the strange energy. I caught myself thinking, maybe I shouldn't lose the weight. Maybe I shouldn't be this successful. Maybe I should soften, shrink, dim it down a little, make myself a size that keeps everyone else comfortable. All of that old conditioning came flooding back in like it had never left. And I remember catching it mid-thought and going, "Are you kidding me, Jess? Like, here we go again. You're 41 years old and that little girl who wants everyone to be okay with her is still trying to run the show." And that's the duality of this situation. Rising and doubting myself at the same time. Expanding and contracting in the same breath. Feeling more powerful than I've ever felt and more scrutinized than I'd ever been simultaneously. And nobody talks about this. Everyone's selling the glow up. Nobody mentions that the glow up comes with a spotlight, and spotlights attract shadows. And can I just say, this is exactly why I created my free community, Sovereign Wealth for Women, because there are conversations that need space held for them. Not the highlight reel version, the real version, the duality, the pushback, the identity work underneath the wealth work. If you do not have a room where you can talk about this honestly, come and join us. It's completely free. The link is in the show notes. Now, it was in the middle of all of that, the rising and the pushback and the noise, that I finally started to understand what had actually been happening for me all along. The physical weight was a representation of the mental weight I was carrying, and I believe this to the core. The unresolved things, the trauma I hadn't processed, the standards that I had been willing to accept for myself, the friendships I knew in my bones were finished and kept being a part of anyway. The misalignment I could feel humming underneath my life for months, and consciously I was choosing to ignore it. My body had been storing all of it. Every avoided conversation, every tolerated disrespect, every glass of wine that stood in for a boundary I didn't set. My body was not the problem. My body was the messenger. And it took a serious level of awareness and honesty, a level of surrender to finally sit down and go, this isn't just weight, Jess. This is emotional. This is spiritual. This is everything. It is all one thing. So let me give you something practical here, because I do not want this just to be about my story. I want it to become your mirror. I want you to do a little audit with me, and I call it finding the costume, because at the end of the day, misalignment shows up somewhere, and it always wears one of 4 costumes: your body, your relationships, your money, or your spirit. So ask yourself these 4 questions and be brutally honest with it. Your body, is it holding something right now that logic cannot explain? You see weight that will not move, exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, tension that massage actually doesn't release. That's your body speaking loudly. Then let's look at your relationships. When you leave after spending time with the people closest to you, do you feel expanded or do you feel drained? Not sometimes, predominantly. What is the true answer to that question? And then it comes to your money. Is there a pattern in your finances that keeps repeating no matter what strategy you apply? Maybe it's a ceiling you're hitting, a leak that you keep springing. Ask yourself seriously, where is that money leak for you? And then when it comes to your spirit, is there a hum, that quiet frequency underneath your life telling you that something's off, that you keep drowning out with busyness? If that's the case, it's your spirit that needs fine-tuning. So wherever you answered yes, this is where the message is for you. And that is where your next level is being held hostage. And here is the key. The costume it's wearing is almost never where the actual problem lives. So the weight was never about food for me. The money pattern is rarely about money. The costume is the symptom. The misalignment is the cause. And that is what I need you to hear today. So whoever you are, wherever you're listening to this, you cannot show up in just one area of your life and believe it's not affecting others. It's impossible. There is a ripple effect operating in your life right now, whether you acknowledge it or not. Your weight, your friendships, your money, your business, your marriage, they're not separate problems sitting in separate boxes. They are the same thing wearing different costumes. That struggling business of yours, it might have nothing to do with your strategy, nothing to do with your offer or your marketing or the algorithm. One of your closest friends, your perceived best friend, might be the very thing blocking your abundance, because God, the universe, source, whatever you call it, is looking at your life and going, why is she still here? Why are you holding on to something that's clearly finished? Why would I hand you the next level while you're still gripping onto the last one? And hear me clearly with this. This is not about being cruel to people. This is not a license to burn down your life and call it alignment. This is honesty. It's radical, it's uncomfortable, and it's liberating. And there are reasons you know you are misaligned. You can feel them, and you've probably felt them for months, if not years. That hum underneath your life, that quiet frequency of wrongness that you keep drowning out with busyness and wine and scrolling, one more Netflix episode. So my question for you is the same one I finally had to ask myself. Standing in the bathroom, 10 kilos heavier than 9 months pregnant, thriving business, and a very hollow feeling. Why are you ignoring it? Because the weight in whatever form you are carrying it, whether it's physical, relational, financial, or spiritual, is not going anywhere until you deal with what is actually made of. But when you do, and I'm living proof of this, when you finally do, everything moves. Not just the thing you're working on, everything. The body, the business, the bank account, the rooms you get invited into, the people who find you out of nowhere, all of it moves together because it was always tied together in the first place. And that is what this year has taught me. And I think it might be the most important thing I have learned in a decade. If something in this episode landed for you, or if you felt a flicker of recognition anywhere in your body while I was speaking, I want you to know that that flicker is information. That's the hum. So don't scroll past this and rush through this. Sit with it. Ask it, what has it been trying to tell you? And if you want a room full of women doing this exact same work who hold space for these conversations every single day, come and join Sovereign Wealth for Women. It's a free community. The link is in the show notes. And honestly, it might be the most aligned room that you walk into this year. You know where to find me. Have a beautiful day.